つか君がくれた花束はそういつの間にか星空に溶けて消えてもう色も意味も香りもその手触りも夜がそっと飲み込んだ
I don't even know where to start with this one. Truth be told, this isn't the first time I've talked about Tekken 7's story. I've done it before, 2 times in particular to be exact, and while it was fun to collaborate with the Chilled Scrub or make the very first story critique a year ago, none of them were really that good on my end. I would spend the intro laying out the foundation for what I wanted the video or stream to be, and I would spend the rest of the time making fun of Bandai Namco because of what I found displeasing about the story. That led to neither discussion being that good or entertaining to watch. Because despite me still thinking that this story is really bad, spoiler alert, the overall motivation to discuss it in this format to begin with did come from a genuine place of passion. Despite me not being too fond of T7 overall from playing the game to Season 1 and seeing it go on a continuous downward spiral from then on, there was a time that I loved these characters and the world that's been built, and it's frustrating to see how badly it's been botched in the recent titles. With Tekken 8 releasing pretty much tomorrow, and with some of the character info we've gotten, I want to take one final look at Tekken 7's story, see the things Namco screwed up on, and how some of those things will affect Tekken 8. Before we even start with the story, I'm going to lay the groundwork by going back to prior to the release of T7 and understand why it's so disappointing and how I feel about certain decisions leading up to Tekken 8. We touched on this in the stream, but to summarize, Tekken 7 had a lot of hype surrounding it. Fans online would go crazy over every new trailer and piece of information we were given. Content creators would travel to Japan and make videos on Tekken 7 in its early state, and it was really exciting to see back then. The additional story trailers, such as Kazumi's reveal, making it seem like Namco had a lot of plans for the story going forward. The inclusion of Akuma took everyone by surprise and only made excitement for the story even bigger. The fandom was pretty split on the direction Tekken's story took after Tekken 6, and this game was coming out hot off the heels of the poor release date and story at SF5. Namco had everything lined up for them to strike golden. People really hoped that this game would be the one to get the series back on track, and then Tekken 7 came out with its god-awful story, ending, unplayable online, and lackluster content. Yeah. Usually when people talk about Tekken 7 being disappointing, they stick to talking about the gameplay, absence of old game modes, and so on, and while all those complaints are valid, one of the biggest offenders for me is the story. As said before, people usually meme on how atrocious Tekken 7's story is, claiming that fighting games have never had good stories, despite that not being the case. But this game really is a product of a lot of the issues with the release of Tekken 7 and the state of T7 overall. Bandai Namco didn't even care about the story mode. It feels like they made the trailers and then remembered they had to follow up with the story and just threw it together in 5 minutes. There are so many problems with Tekken 7's story, and it's not even funny. And we're going to cover them. Let's rip off the bandage early and talk about Tekken 7's terrible narrator. I don't want to just retread old ground, as myself and Scrub went in depth on this during our stream, but in brief, Tekken's storytelling is through this bland, emotionless narrator, and it makes it impossible to get invested in the story. It's such a confusing narrative choice to have every single scene be broken up by this no-name journalist, and frankly, the execution is just so embarrassing. I know prior Tekken games had narration by those games' announcers and the performances there were nothing special, but with the context of who the narrator is supposed to be in this game's story, it could just never work with this direction. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not shitting on the narrator as the concept, I'm just angry with the execution. This character was meant to convey our point of view as to what it's like to live in the world of Tekken during a war. And if he's not interested, why should I be? It's made even worse when you lock important pieces of the lore behind his cutscenes that no one wants to sit through. You'll miss them on the first time playthrough because you'll be taken aback at the poor narration. And if you do a repeat playthrough, you'll just skip over the cutscenes entirely. If we had to have a narrator, just pull a Legacy of Kain and have your actual characters narrate the story.
As I backed away from Janos's body, I was overwhelmed by a sense of self-loathing so deep I could barely contain it. I rejected all that I ever was, and embraced the role Janos had safeguarded for me so patiently throughout the centuries. I would pursue the Sarafan dogs to their loathsome fortress and avenge Janos Audrin's murder. Mobius would pay dearly for his treachery, and my Sarafan brethren would reap the horrors they had sown. When all these debts have been paid, I would reclaim Janos Audrin's heart.
We had already gotten something similar in T6, and it was a lot more interesting whatever this was supposed to be.
I remember receiving my first letter from my son a few years back. Scribbled on it were the words, "I love you." I was so happy I cried. I was dumbstruck. How could my hometown have come under attack? When I returned, nothing was as I remembered. The roads used to be quiet. Hardly a car in sight. In a restaurant. His eyes burned with an almost ungodly fighting spirit. His eyes told a story of sadness hidden deep within. The sterile air of Violet's systems, where he and Lee were holed up together. No idea why Heihachi had suddenly agreed to meet with me. His eyes latched onto mine, filling me with unshakable fear.
Good God. I'm sure if the voice actor of the narrator was given better voice direction, and frankly a less cringeworthy script to work with, he would have given a believable performance at the very least. But ultimately, he was a victim of Namco's sloppiness. The goal of Tekken 7's story was meant to shed light on the Mishima family and paint their history as one of tragedy. With that goal in mind, we needed to spend time with these characters more than ever. I wish we had got to see Jin face the repercussions of what he did in T6, and see him battle his other self. I wish we had got to see glimpses of Kazuya's humanity, his happy memories with his parents and grandfather. I wish we had got to see the strong, proud, loving husband and the father of the Mishima family, before his transformation into the monster he would become for the rest of the series. Let's talk about that. Look, I've spent quite a bit of time talking about Heihachi. Both times I've talked about Tekken 7 story mode, and I don't want to just repeat myself, so I'll keep this very brief. In the original story of Tekken, Heihachi viewed both his father and son as weak and not worthy of the Mishima name. He overthrew Jinpachi and left him to starve to death under Honmaru, and had a different test for his son, to throw him off a cliff to see if he would survive. The idea being that if Kazuya was truly Heihachi's son, he would climb back up the cliff and defeat him one day. In every single adaptation or reference to this event, they have kept this character motivation in mind, and it's been consistent. Heihachi has always been characterized in two ways. He's a ruthless monster bent on world domination, and just an overall dick. He adopts Li Changlan and mistreats him in the Mishima household. He locks his father under a temple and leaves him to die. He shoots his grandson in the head when he outlived his usefulness, and he impregnates Nina when she's in cryosleep. And he awakens an ancient god of fighting in order to steal his power. Like I said, complete dick, or a complete freaking goofball. His ruthlessness and aggressiveness apply to his gameplay as well. Heihachi has always been the aggressive Mishima. Kazuya was a defensive one. Jin and Devil Jin were a mixture of the two playstyles, which made sense canonically because Jin beat both Heihachi and Kazuya. As we can see, Heihachi's character has been pretty consistent up to this point, and nothing too drastic has been done with him. But then came along Tekken 7, and in true Tekken 7 fashion, they managed to mess it up. Heihachi tells the narrator that the real reason he threw Kazuya off the cliff is because he wanted to see if he had the devil in him or not. The suspicion's coming from the fact that Kazuya's mother Kazumi was a devil the whole time. Heihachi is now being characterized as a sympathetic villain. A Walter White, if you will, as he was forced to kill Kazumi, whom he deeply loved. But for so many reasons, this narrative doesn't work. And it's not just because of what's already been stated about Heihachi's story up to this point. The information that this game, which introduces the retcons to begin with, gives us, contradicts this new narrative so ridiculously. The narrator states early in the story that Heihachi had already lodged Jinpachi under Honmaru prior to Kazumi's murder attempt. Or murder attempts plural, because Kazumi had tried to kill Heihachi multiple times and he never once thought something was up and he just went with it. Regardless, you lost your tragic hero right there. Death of Kazumi or not, we need to keep in mind that Heihachi always had plans to overthrow Jinpachi, who Kazuya doesn't even mention when he tries to get revenge. So did Kazuya not know about his grandfather's death, or did he just not care? Did Kazuya's relationship with Jinpachi get retconned too? The second problem with this retcon is that Heihachi's an idiot. Look, I know people make poor decisions when in tense situations, but Heihachi has been in tough spots before, so this problem is only made worse. Heihachi tells the narrator that he threw Kazuya off of the cliff to see if he had the devil in him or not. If he survived, he was a future threat. If not, he was fine the whole time. So, riddle me this, Batman. What if Kazuya didn't have the devil in him, or if his power didn't activate upon death?
What was the plan then, genius? Huh?
I don't know.
You don't know. You know why you don't know? Because you don't think. That's why. You don't think. You never figured out how to think.
You would have just murdered your own kid. I could honestly care less about your relationship with your wife. This retcon makes no sense, and making these irrational decisions is so out of character for Heihachi. He schemes, he plans ahead, he has plans in place in case things don't go his way. So why do such a barbaric thing to your son? In Tekken 4, Heihachi ran experiments on Ogre's blood to figure out how to make himself immortal, so why doesn't he run tests on Kazuya to figure out how to get rid of the devil? Oh, he'll experiment on an ancient god for power, but he won't do a blood test or anything to the sort to his son. If you didn't want to do experiments on Kazuya, just do it to the source of his power. Like, Kazumi's body is right there. You have the money and resources to run tests on her corpse to figure out what the devil is and how to get rid of it. Or, even better, remember Heihachi's Tekken 4 ending? Remember how he used this chain against Kazuya and Jin and stated that you conveniently have this magic chain in the same temple that your father is currently locked under, but you don't think to use it at all on your son or wife, both of whom are infected with the devil gene. I mean, Devil Jin's tattoos and chains symbolize the fact that Jin's a slave to the devil, or that he's lost his freedom. Why not just say that Kazuya lost his freedom because Heihachi forces him to wear these chains and he won't say why because the memory hurts him? Regardless, Heihachi's new narrative doesn't work at all in this game because we were never meant to feel sorry for him. It's like the writers of T7 watched Breaking Bad and completely missed the point of Walter White. He's sympathetic for like the first 2 episodes, but then the rest of the series showcases him being a massive man-baby with a fragile ego. He supposedly wants to save his family, but doesn't take Elliot's offer. And when it's all said and done by the end of the series, he outright admits that he did everything for himself and he liked what he did without feeling an ounce of remorse. Breaking Bad doesn't tell you that Walt's a good guy, or nor do they try to defend his actions. Meanwhile, Tekken 7 attempts to justify Heihachi's horrific acts throughout the whole series because his precious Kazumi died. This heel turn doesn't even make any sense. How do you go from "my wife died" to "I want to rule the world"? Jinpachi is also being retconned from beyond the grave because apparently Heihachi is the one who refounded the Mishima Zaibatsu, as stated by series game director Katsuhiro Harada. Clearly, Namco wanted this arc for Heihachi, and it's not for any good reason. It's only because they're trying to copy off of NRS, who did a sympathetic character arc of their own. I've touched on these character comparisons before, so I'll go through these really fast. Despite most NRS stories being mediocre or outright bad, they started the trend for fighting games to have cinematic stories, and they did a deep dive on Scorpion's character. In MK9 and X, Scorpion is a servant to the same man who killed his family and clan, and he gets tricked into killing Sub-Zero. When Hanzo gets revived in MKX, he vowed his clan would ensure Earthrealm's protection and buries the rivalry with the younger Sub-Zero. Scorpion makes mistakes along the way, like killing Bi-Han and leading to him becoming Noob Saibot, killing Quan Chi too early and dooming the Revenants, but he learns from his mistakes and he becomes a better character because of it. Moreover, the story doesn't justify his actions despite them being understandable. Kratos gives his humanity the finger, but this makes sense because of what he's been through. He served the gods for 10 years only for them to not free him of his nightmares, and they prevent his suicide attempt, instead opting to give him a reward that he didn't want. They let Ares trick him into killing his wife and child, and Zeus tricks him into getting his mother and brother killed. This taking place after Kratos kills the Furies who had a plot with Ares to overthrow Olympus, stopping Atlas and Persephone who tried to destroy the pillar that held the heavens, and saving Athens. So it's no wonder that when we reach God of War 3, Kratos is fed up with everyone's crap. Sasuke Uchiha cares for his comrades but is driven astray by hatred towards his older brother, which opens him up to manipulation from Orochimaru, causing him to leave the village. He later learns that the same village forced his brother to massacre their clan and abandon him, causing him to want to start a revolution against the flawed shinobi system that has consistently screwed everyone over. Yet you have people call Sasuke an edgelord who had no reason for turning evil, or you have people say that Kratos was a man-child who didn't become a good character until God of War 4. All of these characters have suffered infinitely more than Heihachi, yet he doesn't receive the same amount of backlash that they do. I'm not annoyed with the Heihachi retcon for the surface level issues of them changing the established lore, because retcons can add a lot to a story if done right. I know there are people who are split on this movie, but Spider-Man 3 made a good choice in making Sandman Uncle Ben's killer. It added to that movie's theme of revenge and forgiveness, and it also led to undoubtedly one of the best Black Suit Spider-Man fights ever. So yes, retcons in a story can work. The problem with fighting games, mainly Tekken and Mortal Kombat from what I've both seen and heard, is that the writers always make the most complete out of left field choices and never think ahead or about the implications behind what it is they retcon in the story. But with a retcon this huge, there must have been a good reason to shift Heihachi's overall narrative this much, right? Well, no, it was just to add an underwhelming character to the roster and story. Moving on from Heihachi, let's talk about his other half Kazumi, because, my god, what a complete waste of a character. I tried being lenient with Heihachi's mess of a narrative in this game, but I have no such limitations going forward. Now, there were many theories going around as to what Kazumi's significance was going to be in the story, what her relationship with Heihachi was like, and so on. Her reveal had a lot of hype behind it because of the Tekken 2 Easter egg, and this led to people thinking she would play a big part in the story. So, surely, with this much hype and callback to before Tekken 1, Namco made great use of this character, explained her motivations and significance, and paid it off in a really satisfying way, and I used this joke in the stream already. Point is, they didn't make use of Kazumi at all. Midway through the story, Kazumi is name dropped here and there, but we don't get to actually see her until she just dies to Heihachi, and with the limited screen time that we do get with her, she's severely underdeveloped and bland. This character was retconned into being the entire reason as to why the Mishima feud starts, but we don't even get to see her for most of the game. According to Heihachi, he and Kazumi were close and became inseparable, and this sequence has to be the biggest case of show don't tell. We don't get to see the Mishima family household before it pulls a Parker and turns to shit, so that statement doesn't mean much. Why couldn't these abysmal narrator scenes be replaced with flashbacks to the Mishima household? There's an idea, but as it currently stands, the story of the Mishimas has been told and changed too many times for it to make any sense, so no one really knows what the Mishima family was like prior to the murder attempt. One second Heihachi's an abusive father, and the next he's a heartbroken man. The problems only get worse as Kazumi is a part of the Hachicho clan, and they've been around forever, taking out threats to the world like Heihachi. Why have we never heard about this clan up until now? Why has this supernatural supposed Azazel worshipping clan done nothing now that one of their members has failed her mission? Oh right, bad writing. What was the point of Kazumi having a kid with Heihachi if she was meant to kill him? If Kazuya was meant to be insurance in case she failed, then that would be fine, and it would explain why she became so close to the younger Kazuya, but this game just can't be consistent for 5 seconds because Kazumi orders Akuma to kill both Heihachi and Kazuya. I have so many questions about this. If Akuma needed Kazumi to save his life, why on earth would she think that he would be able to take out Heihachi if she failed her mission? Why didn't she just tell Akuma to train Kazuya if she failed? Jesus, was Kazumi planning to kill her own kid if she succeeded? And what the hell was with her random blackouts? Or her random split persona? Was that the devil in her taking over? I thought the Hachicho clan was supposed to be the origin point of the devil. Why make this clan of devils if you write them to be unable to control the power that they're fucking born with? All we're even given about that clan's link to the devil is the song Demon Be Gone, the Crimson River being in place in the bloodline and a vein of lava contrasting with the Japanese flower in that cutscene meaning that it's autumn. Something withering and dying, a demented sign of new life. Shouts out to Gizo Katai for deciphering this crap because I know for a fact I'd never be able to myself. Despite this song, we still understand nothing about why Kazumi is so comedically evil in this game, or how this causes Heihachi's heel turn and makes him become a dick for the rest of the series. What does he see in her that makes him mourn so damn much? Though, I know the real reason for Kazumi's introduction. Originally in Tekken 1 and 2, Kazuya made a deal with the devil for power to kill his father in exchange for his soul. He meets Jun Kazama while under the devil's influence and has a battle within himself while fighting Heihachi in real time. He loses to Heihachi but manages to tame the devil within and is thrown into a volcano. In Tekken 3, the devil infects Jin by branding him with a tattoo. These all fit with Tekken's original theme, the pursuit of power and revenge. How far are you willing to go in said pursuit and face the consequences? Then came along Tekken 4 and flipped this narrative on its head, stating that Kazuya never made a deal with the devil, he just activated his devil gene. In the old version of T5, both Jinpachi's ending and his interlude with Heihachi said that he had the devil gene, somehow, but this was later retconned by Harada into being an unknown evil spirit. Tekken 6 then added the explanation of Azazel, who was the origin of the devil gene and served as Jin's motivation for starting a war and wanting to kill him, which both that game's stinger and T7 reveals he failed to do with Safina's character. We now have the Hachicho clan being the main explanation for the devil gene. Over the course of 3 mainline games since the concept was introduced, the devil gene has remained unexplained and just gets more confusing. Kazuya was originally meant to be the devil incarnate, but as pointed out by Scrub, if Kazumi was the one who infected the Mishima household, Kazuya is a half-breed and Jin is a quarter-breed. Which begs the question, why does Jin have such a hard time controlling the devil if he got a watered-down version of the gene? How come Kazuya at a young age showed no signs of it prior to the cliff? compared to Kazumi, who couldn't even control her own split persona. Is the devil gene just like the symbiote in Curse Mark where it just feeds off of negative emotions and is activated upon death? Jin and Kazuya had no issues with it until they were placed in that position. You're meaning to tell me that Heihachi started this entire drama for poorly written story reasons and we just have to deal with this crap forever? Sympathetic man who creates the very devils he wants to fight against but gets a free pass and isn't criticized at all by the story. Instead, he gets free passes and Lars remarks that the world is a worse place without him. If devils destroyed his family, why does he try to take the power of the devil in Tekken 4? The overall concept of the devil that was straightforward in the first 3 games has fizzled out into this nonsensical mess that no one even knows what it is. If the devil gene is transmitted by blood, why the hell does Devil brand Jin with a tattoo in T3? He already had it. Shouldn't Jin be able to fight off the infection with his Kazama blood? It happened in T4, so why doesn't that work anymore? How does Jinpachi simply existing make Jin flip out in T5? Especially since he doesn't have the devil gene anymore. It can't be because he's an evil spirit since Yoshi's sword is corrupted and the energy from Soul Edge doesn't make him flip out. We can do experiments on and kill an ancient god of fighting, but the devil gene is just so powerful that killing the supposed origin point of it just doesn't work? If it's all by blood, what was up with Angel back in Tekken 2? I thought she represented Kazuya's humanity and the positivity with Jun. This whole concept weakens both Kazuya and Jin's eternal struggles because it's not a power being accepted with it having an ongoing consequence. No matter what, Jin and Kazuya would have always had to struggle with it. Considering how bland a character Kazuya is in the newer games, with him being comically evil, this just weakens his story for me. He's had that same ending since the first game along with Heihachi. They kill their family members and then do a generic evil laugh, and now you want me to feel sorry for their story? Heihachi is the sole reason why most events even happen in Tekken. What was the purpose of adding Kazuya's anger at Heihachi for killing his mother in the promotional material for Tekken 7 if he just laughs it off in the actual story? Why give him depth just to not follow up with it? Kazuya shouldn't have his red eye anymore, nor his final devil form by the way, because A, he lost the eye in Tekken 4, and B, he's still missing the other half of his devil gene from Jin. This final devil form you pulled out would have been really useful when you fought against and lost to Jin in Tekken 4 after taming Devil. Then again, Kazuya is the second character on the box art and has little to no presence as a threat in this game. He just sits in his chair moping until Akuma goes to G-Corp. Oh yeah, and I guess we should talk about Mr. Goki-san. Never mind this game having an embarrassing, hard to follow plot, now we got guest fighters in the main story. Apparently, off-screen, Kazumi saved Akuma and ordered him to kill both Heihachi and Kazuya. Why wait until the events of T7 to show your face? Nice plot hole, bro. Like I said before, if Kazumi needed to save Akuma's life, there's no way he would be able to take down a threat that she herself couldn't beat. Or better yet, why didn't they just jump Heihachi as is? He barely beat Kazumi and nearly died to Akuma in this game when he was quote stronger, so I don't understand it at all. Where the hell was Akuma to be in such a dire position that he needed saving from Kazumi in the first place? When did she even meet him if she spent most of her time with Kazuya and Heihachi? Why the hell does Akuma look the same 20 to 30 years ago as he does in the present day? Heihachi didn't age that well. Did no one else think that was weird? Nothing about this story makes sense, the characters have shit motivations, and they're all so terribly written in this game. Here we go, perfect example. Heihachi has this elaborate plan to dox Kazuya's double form and then kill him with Dr. Abel's laser. The same laser that failed to kill Gunjack, but okay. The plan fails, obviously, but now the public knows about Kazuya's devil form, and he comes up with his own brilliant scheme to shoot a laser at the Zaibatsu satellite. Ignoring the science behind it, this somehow works, and the world immediately forgets about Kazuya being a devil and turns on the Zaibatsu. They even had press conferences and world leader meetings about Kazuya being a devil, but they forget about it in a matter of hours at most. What even was the point of this scene? What, was it meant to reflect how stupid people on the internet are? Why does their opinion change at the drop of a hat? I have such a bone to pick with Heihachi. You're telling me this whole time you had a huge space laser at the ready and you never once thought to use it up until now? Instead of dicking around in your dojo, why didn't you just shoot Kazuya then? He doesn't do anything except sit on his chair moping. Why would you both make your presence known by hosting a tournament? And wait until Kazuya is in his more durable devil form than just killing him in his human form? Kazumi, a full-blooded devil, dies from getting her neck snapped, but a half-breed can tank a damn space laser? How is the devil gene so strong yet they still lose to fighters like Hwoarang? The power scaling with this gene is so ridiculously inconsistent. How come after this plan fails, Heihachi thinks this will be his final fight and he wants the narrator to tell his story? He already beat Kazuya in Tekken 2 and 4 and lasted longer against Akuma than Kazuya did in his human form. The final fight between the two, while it's a cool spectacle, is really nothing other than that. A spectacle. All the dialogue from the trailers is absent and it's the same old story these two have been beefing over for a decade. There's also no reason for them to fight at a volcano. I get their symbolism behind it, but without an in-story reason, this comes out of nowhere. Context is key. They could have had their final fight in the Kinder Gym and nothing would change. Heihachi is an idiot in this game who makes the most illogical and irrational decisions and digs a deeper hole for himself for no reason. Why start a tournament to capture Jin and try to expose both his and Kazuya's devil forms if you already had proof of Kazuya being a devil that you used to bribe Claudio into joining you back in chapter 3? He has literally unlimited resources at the ready and only waits until his last half-baked plan fails in order to use them. If he threw everything at the cast after taking back the Zaibatsu, or if he just used his multi-million-dollar company's science labs on Kazuya and or Kazumi, no one would have time to adapt or react and the whole story would be over in like 5 minutes. You would have had the whole world in your back pocket, or you would have still had your loving family. Who fucking cares if the world sees Kazuya as a devil, or if they learn the truth about the Mishima family? It only holds significance for the main cast, most of whom already know the Mishima drama, and the significance has mounted to nothing for the outside world, because they already forgot about Kazuya's devil form and he's chilling riding in helicopters as seen in T8's story trailer. It speaks volumes that I roll my eyes at every single attempt at drama or a serious plot thread, or just laugh at every attempt to be profound or sad, throwing in confusing messages in your story. Tekken 7 doesn't even end on an interesting moral note or have a good theme with any of the endings. What's the moral here? What's the interesting theme? What lesson was learned? Fear of betrayal from your loved ones leads to a life of solitude and despair? So screw over your family members and the world that hasn't done anything to you? What? I know T4 is broken gameplay wise, but at least that game ended with Jin breaking out of the cycle of the Mishimas killing each other. It's made even worse when we keep extending this tired story by giving Heihachi 25 different kids we've never heard of or seen, one of which is going to be a playable character. Get out of here! Reina doesn't even look that bad of a character, so I'm not upset with her simply existing. It's just the concept and the story behind her that I'm not too fond of. Whether you like or hate SF6's World Tour mode, at least that story and those characters went somewhere. At least they beat Bison and the story only has the most minor teases about his resurrection. The characters all have their own unique personalities and they aren't insufferable. Hell, Juri has a more distinct character in that game despite her whole purpose in life being gone now. You know, with the fan service, at least she still has her own character and isn't just retreading old plot threads. Ugh. Scrub said it best in the stream. Tekken copies off of everyone else instead of creating something new. Don't believe me? Kazumi is a ripoff of Kaguya from Naruto. Her devil form is ripped off of Kaguya's overall design, and moreover, the entire Hachijo clan, and by extension Heihachi's children, are just ripoffs of the Otsutsuki clan. They come out of nowhere near the end of the narrative just to extend the series, have a nonsensical story behind them, and are given more significance in the story than the characters we've actually followed for years, only to give the main characters another punching bag to fight. I know I've gone through a lot, but we're still not done here. So, if Namco butchered the main story this badly, what about the side characters? Well, Tekken 7 decides to give the side characters single matchups with a bit of text telling them what your character has been doing from 6 to 7 with a single cutscene afterwards. And this serves as a replacement for arcade endings, rendering that entire mode worthless. There was a version of this script where I talk about these endings individually, but really, what is there for me to say? This mode serves as a product of my overall point that Namco doesn't care about these characters or their stories anymore. The endings are either comedic segments or worthless plot threads. Every single one of them. Bob is just fat, Paul's an idiot, Asuka and Lily are a lesbian couple, Dragunov caresses his face, Josie's a crybaby, Heen is boring, so on and so forth. I can't entirely blame Tekken 7 for this lack of care because the plot issues I talked about up until now have started back in Tekken 4 and 5. Tekken 4 definitely has the best story and aesthetic for the series, but it introduced the Devil Gene crap, and Tekken 5 started giving the side characters lame comedic endings or pointless rivalries. Tekken 6 then went fucking nuts with the amount of anime humor.
School is completely ruined.
ありがとう、シャン。
ちダメよ、そんなこと。あれ？ここは？
Not over.
The only character with a decent ending in this game is Miguel, and that's only because his story somewhat gets progressed. It should say a lot that I had so much to say on the Mishima plot, but I have little words for the side cast. And somehow we're still not done, because we have the entire DLC cast to go through. Despite having an entire mode dedicated to side stories, with the exception of Eliza, none of the DLC fighters get any expanded stories outside of their trailers. Wanna know where Lei was after Tekken 6? Why Anna is wearing a widow dress? Or why Zafina has Azazel's power? You have to go on the Tekken Twitter or read the wiki like a goddamn manual to a PS2 game. Well shit, guess she won't be back for Tekken 8.
What do they hope to achieve by sheltering Jean?
Wait, what the fuck?! The guest fighters also get no expanded story at all, and they're so bland in this game. Akuma is relegated to being a hitman, Geese wants to beef with the Mishima family, Noctis and the Final Fantasy XV crew are generic shonen characters who just want to fight for the sake of fighting, and Negan just curses up a storm. He's undoubtedly the weirdest guest fighter in the game too. Akuma and Geese are both fighters, and while Noctis definitely should have been in Soul Calibur, he was at least trending at the time, so his inclusion somewhat makes sense. But Negan is such a mystery. When he made his on-screen appearance, The Walking Dead was on a decline at the time because the fans weren't happy with the quality of the writing. Like when they randomly decided to kill Carl off. There's only so many times I can hear Jeffrey D. Morgan repeat Negan quotes before it gets old. Then again, AMC is a greedy studio that refuses to let their story end and they keep trying to extend their own series. It's ironic, really. I know someone is going to defend this by saying T7 had a low budget. My response? Don't care. Lame plastic models? Fine. Lacking customization? Also fine. Guest fighter rights limiting customization? Whatever. When it comes to story, there's no excuse to not try, especially when you integrate foreign characters into it. MK and Injustice give DLC fighters their own endings and special interactions, guest fighters included. If your budget is so low that you can't throw in a single screen of text with one cutscene afterwards, just do what MK11 did and make an Aftermath style expansion to give the DLCs more depth. Noctis is the only DLC fighter in the entire game that has a two-way intro with a base roster fighter. No King and Armor King intro? Anna with Nina? Geese vs Mishimas? Seriously? All of these characters have been so massively damaged by this game. Tekken 7's philosophy holds such a hollow message and it's so up its own ass that it's insufferable. The main theme of this game is the loneliness of betrayal and how it scars people, giving new insight to the scar on Kazuya's chest. In the case of Heihachi, his arc is the fear of betrayal and how it serves as his fatal character flaw. When Kazumi tried to kill him, it demonized how he viewed her, hence her transforming into a devil, and this led him to see the devil in everyone around him and wanting to rid himself of this curse. However, by enacting on this fear, it led him to create the very devils that he fights against. Ironic, isn't it? It's like Madara's quote of humanity's paradox. Humans desire peace, yet they create wars. The inescapable cycle of hatred. The family feud enables the cycle of hatred that leads to the pursuit of power and revenge. It's why Kazuya accepts the devil's power to begin with. It sounds like an enticing drama, right? A cycle of hatred and a pursuit of power because of a family feud, the loneliness and despair of betrayal. These all sound like really interesting themes, bad writing aside. And Tekken 7 doesn't provide an answer on how to deal with the loneliness of betrayal. But do you want to know what the problem is with Heihachi's arc in this game? Or how Tekken 7 doesn't provide an answer on the cycle of hatred? It's that this arc has been explored already with Jin. Ogre's attack on Jun began Jin's pursuit of power by training under Heihachi. Even after beating Ogre, Jin doesn't even look happy. Heihachi then guns him down and we see Jin suffer from the loneliness of betrayal. Literally. He hides his face under a hood, moves to Australia, and continues to seek power by unlearning the Mishima Ryu style of karate. He continues the cycle of hatred by vowing to kill his father and grandfather. We see the irony of how Jin is becoming the very thing that he hates, transforming into the devil and enacting revenge. He could end it all right here, put an end to the Mishima curse. But he stops. The statue that Jin sees is that of the Buddha. The Buddha represents a figure of self-control. It's why Jin refuses to end it all here. With the maximum of like 4 to 5 cutscenes in 2 games, one of which having no dialogue, Tekken 3 and 4 managed to provide a more compelling, cohesive story than Tekken 7 did in all of its trailers. Less is more. We already got an answer on how to deal with the cycle of hatred and the loneliness and betrayal. The answer is self-control. Jin defeated Heihachi and Kazuya physically, yes, but he beat them on a deeper level as well. You're more than the things you hate, and just because of what you suffer doesn't mean you have to become it. Even Jin's arc in Tekken 6 had more meaning. He who fights with monsters should be careful lest he himself become a monster.
When you look too long into the abyss looks back through you.
It's the same lesson that Scorpion, Kratos, Sasuke, and even Peter in Spider-Man 3 had to learn. Do you want to know why Tekken rehashed this arc? Why the cycle of hatred will never end? It's because Bandai Namco refuses to let their story move on. They keep recycling old plot points and arcs just to keep their story going. How many times are we gonna have a random Mishima come out of nowhere and affect the plot before it gets old? How many times is Jin gonna tame the devil, only to lose control of it in the next trailer? Tekken's story is so repetitive and boring now. It's the same dark and edgy setting for the main plot, with the garbage comedy bits for the sidecast. It's such a lame way of doing storytelling. The only reason why Lars, Kazumi, Akuma, and Reina are given any kind of story significance is because they're Mishima, or in the case of Akuma, related to the Mishimas. It's why Asuka's potential peaked in the game that she debuted in and has only gone downhill ever since. They brought back Devil Jin faster than they brought back Jun. The Mishima favoritism is ridiculous and hasn't done the story any favors, only kept it stagnant. The devil form has lost all of its meaning in Tekken, and I'm not just talking about the poor writing of the devil gene, but the original concept. Kazuya accepting the devil's power conveyed the theme of the pursuit of power. More importantly, when Kazuya transformed into the devil, it held more meaning. His skin would turn purple, his feet would form, he grew horns, a tail, and wings, the chest scar and his eyes would turn red. He essentially became the devil as how most people envision the devil. This strongly got across the idea of Kazuya being the devil incarnate. Tekken 2's promotional material even said that Kazuya had made a pact with the devil. On the flip side of that coin, we have Angel. Unlike the devil, Angel retains a humanoid form and she's female. This is because feminine figures within Tekken are nurturing and caring. It's no coincidence that the being that represents the opposite of the devil and Kazuya's humanity is female. She has white wings as a stark contrast to the devil's wings. She even watches over Kazuya like a mother would in Tekken 2, Tag 1, and Tag 2. Devil Jin is what happens when you mix these two concepts together. He transforms into a devil, but he mainly keeps his human form. He grows black wings to indicate that he's a fallen angel. The devil forms used to be used to tell us things about Jin and Kazuya's characters. Kazuya isn't a good guy by any means, but Jun sensed the humanity within him. This is something that even Tag 1 showcased with Devil's ending. So, it makes sense that Kazuya would just transform into the devil. Jin, on the other hand, takes the form of a fallen angel. When Jin gives into his dark power, the man has fallen from grace, becoming the very thing that he hates. The name Jin has several meanings. In Chinese, it means gold. In Korean, it translates to precious, reflecting the ways that Jun views her son. In Islamic tradition, the term Jinn, or Jinn, refers to supernatural beings created from smokeless fire. They are mentioned in the Quran as one of Allah's creations alongside humans and angels. Jinn possesses free will and can be good, evil, or neutral. The term Jinn or Jinn doesn't typically serve a personal name, but rather refers to a distinct category of beings in Islamic cosmology. These all tie into Jin's character well and reflects the actions he takes throughout the whole series. The devil was less of a character in Tekken and more so a force in nature. A figure that represents the pursuit of power and vengeance. Angel, on the other hand, represented Tekken's feminine ideal of nurture and care. Jin by nature is the son of a devil, a fallen angel who inherits devil's blood. But due to being nurtured by his mother, it brings him back when he's on the brink of losing his humanity. While Jinpachi's devil form represented the curse of the Mishima bloodline and the Zaibatsu being the throne to said bloodline, the design was so goofy. A stomach mouth and fireballs. Tekken 7 then has Kazumi's stupid flaming wings and the hollow message of solitude and betrayal. Kazuya's transformation from Tag 2 onwards loses most of its original design, and his final devil form looks like a lame Power Rangers villain. It's one thing to have Kazuya control the devil, but at the very least keep the concept consistent, and stop making the form so goofy. It looks like an edgy fan-made design. Look, I know the most common rebuttal to criticism of poor fighting game narratives is that story isn't the main focus in a fighting game. But that's such a cheap cop-out that people use to defend terrible storytelling. Just because storytelling isn't the main selling point or the overall factor as to whether or not a fighting game will be successful doesn't give the writers an excuse to not try. It's also such a lie too. Why do you think people geek out over Ryu and Ken fist bumping before a fight? Or the MK special intros, or just unique character interactions in general in fighting games? It's because of the story behind it. We became attached to these characters and their worlds because of the gameplay and story behind them. Having a good fighting game and a good story shouldn't be mutually exclusive. It's why people threw such a fit over Ronda Rousey voicing Sonya, or the Sindel retcon, because it damages the story and the legacy of these characters. To steal a quote from Godzilla Mendoza, storytelling isn't given an excuse to be low effort just because of its target audience. Bandai Namco can do better. We've experienced better. I'm not asking for Tekken 4 2.0 or anything, I just want them to try. Stop with the spectacle over substance, stop with the cringeworthy try-hard anime dialogue, stop with all the retcons and nostalgia bait, and just tell the story with sincerity and care. Even if it ends up being good, or bad, at least you cared about the product you were making, and it will show. Tekken 7 was meant to be a revival of the series, and while it did well financially, it sucked the soul out of it, with its god-awful story, ending, bastardization of characters, misuse and outright waste of DLC and guest fighters alike, money-grabbing DLC options, lack of content, and a general lack of care put in by the developers. If the people in charge don't care, and if the characters themselves certainly don't care, why should I? I don't know if Tekken 8 is going to be the piece of the puzzle that puts the story back on track, but considering things have only been downhill since T5 and only gotten much worse since then on, I don't have too much hope. But maybe Namco will end up surprising me. But we'll have to wait and see. I want to look back at this video and see that I was proven wrong by Tekken 8.